Ohio State is 2-0. Are they the most impressive wins of all time? Probably not. But let's dive into the rebuilding of the Ohio State offense. And, the defense seems pretty fine. They've given up 10 points in 2 weeks. They won 35-7 against Youngstown State. Welcome to the Notebook on the podcast. I am Austin Ward. Ohio State just wrapping up their post-game press conference in here at the Horseshoe. The home opener is in the books. Kyle McCord throws for 3 touchdowns. Marvin Harrison has his first 2 of the year. But there's going to be a feeling that Ohio State, they were 41.5, then 44-point favorites this morning. That's not the only way to evaluate a team or a win, but that's one way to do it. And Ohio State came up a little bit short in that department. The defense played great, didn't play perfect. Kyle McCord, Devin Brown both played again. Did they play perfect games? No, but there were signs of improvement for both. I think that's sort of the new world order. My first thoughts as we leave in here, it's going to take some time. Now, you can't be patient forever. Pop in here to the recruiting room because something smells amazing. The Orlando Pace recruit room is got some games on it. I would love some of the waffle fries that they had in there. Some queso. I'm getting hungry. It was a long day in here. Anyway, the point is, Ohio State plays Notre Dame on the road in week 4. Look at all these balloons. What a budget we have here. You don't have limitless rope to build with. But if you're trying to stack one thing over the other, Ohio State doesn't feel like they're leaving today distraught over it. And I'm not saying that anybody feels that way, but if the expectation is you handle business a lot more easily and quickly, didn't quite happen today for whatever reason. It could be offensive line growing pains. It could also be going through both quarterbacks and trying to get them involved in the early stretches. Also, the clock rules are something of a problem. Ohio State continues to be, let's see, what was the final count here? 60 plays for Ohio State. Quite simply, not what anybody is used to. Youngstown State was able to find enough success to control the clock, which you can say, well, that's a mark against the defense, and that would probably be a fair evaluation. But 60 and 59 plays, these games are getting shorter. Ohio State did adjust right from the start to account for that. They won the toss. They're 2-0 winning the toss this year. Great stat to file away. But they took the ball, and it looked like they were going to go down and roll right down the field and do that all day long. Kyle McCord hits 71-yard touchdown to Marvin Harrison. The longest reception of Marvin Harrison's career. What's going on over here? We got pizza. Quinn Temple is trying to just lead the quarterback out of here.
Nobody wants
Is it good to be home, Quinn?
It feels good. Feels really good.
Feels really good. All right. Enjoy your weekend. Director of Operations there for Ohio State. Does anybody want a smoothie? Berm, you need to be refreshed? Look at all these smoothies.
Is this live on something?
Is it live?
Look what you just did.
Every time you come over here, Adam, you knock something off.
Hey, do you know that you can get a text subscription with this man?
Is that right?
To get all the info from Berm, Austin, Doug, and Bill.
That's the king right there. All right, so Donato's Pizza and Smoothie King this week, if you're scoring at home. Last week was burritos from Qdoba. This week is pizza. I think most everybody's out of here. It took a while for Ohio State's postgame. Normally we'd have an opportunity to grab a few more players as they leave, or at least one. That did not happen. All right, so Kyle McCord was the last one out. I think he will continue after today to be the first one into the lineup for Ohio State. Here are the numbers. Kyle McCord, 14 of 20, 258 yards, 3 touchdowns. The long of the 71 to Marvin Harrison for the score. Marvin Harrison had 2 touchdowns, 7 catches, 160 yards. And you just can't. I wonder if they weren't intent on getting both quarterbacks involved, if point total would have been different. I don't know. Devin Brown also led some scoring drives. Both of those finished in rushing touchdowns. His numbers for those keeping score, 7 of 13, 101 yards. He was sacked twice. I wonder if, 2 things. If you're going to play Devin Brown and complement Kyle McCord, maybe he should run the same offense as Kyle McCord. I am not a professional, and Ryan Day is one of the most decorated offensive coordinators around. I don't get the sense that quarterback power and fake tosses and running the quarterback is doing Devin Brown any favors. We talked throughout camp about how wide is the actual margin of athleticism between the two? I don't think that it's a matter of like just turning Johnny Manziel or Michael Vick loose out there when Devin Brown is in the game. He had a few bright moments. Now, he did have the one really wide throw. I believe it was to Marvin Harrison or Julian Fleming on the sideline, one or the other. It wasn't close, but he bounced back and then had a nice sort of layered throw for a first down to Carnell Tate that I think went for 20 yards. Like, he can do things that are positive for Ohio State. Is it the most consistent? No, and I think that's why you're looking at Kyle McCord sort of, he's not entrenched. Ryan Day, as he wrapped up upstairs, did not say that this is definitively done, but his responses did suggest that they were moving in a direction that maybe for Western Kentucky next week, one guy is getting all of the snaps until the game is maybe managed or out of control. That's just my read on it. I could definitely be wrong, but the way he talked about it today was certainly different than last week, different than he did either Tuesday press conference leading up to the game. So we'll see. That's certainly going to be his call. They know what's looming in 2 weeks, and they know that this can't continue forever. Again, it comes down to a matter of consistency. I think Devin Brown started 2 for 6 on the way to 7 of 13. You like the way he bounced back for sure, but not perfect. All right, that's the quarterback stuff. Nobody wants to hear me keep talking about that, especially if they're going to resolve that. What do I have in here next? Offensive line play. Two new starters, 2 of the 3, getting popped for holding penalties. Then there was also a third penalty for Josh Simmons with hands to the face. All that in the first half. So today, it didn't seem like the matter was like miscommunication that we heard so much about at Indiana. Is it a technique issue? I don't know. They got hit for 3 penalties that can be drive killers. Now, they weren't for C.J. Stroud in a more polished, complete offense a year ago, which is, again, part of the difficulty in evaluating where Ohio State is right now. They're missing 3 NFL starters. They've been gone for a while, and you'd say you have to account for that, and you do. You don't get to use that as an excuse all year. But for 2 weeks, you're probably not going to be done with all the growing pains. So I think Ohio State felt like the pass protection was better. There were some running lanes. You look at the numbers and the efficiency. Some of that was better than week 1 against Indiana. Certainly, Travion Henderson exploded for a handful of runs that were pretty important for Ohio State. But if you were concerned coming out of week 1, I'm not sure that Ohio State thinks it's done with the work in progress in week 2, nor do they have to be. They probably won't have to be against Western Kentucky either. But that's certainly something that is going to have to still be monitored for Ohio State. But as mentioned there with Travion, the 2 touchdowns, averaged over 11 yards a carry. I look at the stat sheet, Berm, and it's like, is this right? 5 attempts for 56 yards? Like, everything is out of whack with how short these games are. It felt like because he's starting, he was getting enough work. Now, a couple of those were called back for penalties, which means that they don't show up on the stat sheet, but that's just a really weird amount. And, it's not that he needed a lot more work, because Mayan Williams and Chip Trainum have done good things, and they got Xavier Johnson involved 3 times as a rusher as well. It's just limited opportunities, which is crazy. And so all of that makes you put it into this pot. Say, well, you're trying to work through 2 quarterbacks. You're trying to bring 3 new offensive linemen into the picture, and you're not getting as many plays to do it. The rule change sucks. Does anybody out there, America, feel like, you know what? I like the length of time that I'm watching college football, but I want to see less football. I don't want to see the plays. I'm not in it for that. Just give me replays and commercials. And I say that tongue not even in cheek. It's stupid. I don't know who thought through this rule. You can't say player safety. Arvell Reese, gets, I don't know the exact injury. Looks like when knocked out, bump. I don't know. He got knocked out, Berm said, and he's right about that. Let's show him your workspace in here. But that comes on a full normal kickoff coverage play. They didn't remove that from the equation. I would think if you want to think about player safety and removing plays from the game, maybe take that out. Teams are still trying to use strategic advantages of kicking it short and covering it and leading to these high-speed collisions. I think that one even came, unless I'm mistaken, on a play that was a fair catch touchback. So I think there are a lot of things that have to be addressed and things that are dumb about the way college football games are being officiated right now. 2 weeks in a row, quarterback slides, they call a targeting on Ohio State and they wind up overturning it. I don't know what anybody's looking at. I don't know what the rules are, why we don't get to watch football games, but it's dumb. Anyway, let's see what else. There was another nice play for Devin Brown that I would be remiss not to mention. Did use the legs on the 4th down. Ohio State gave him a chance to stay out there and try and stay alive. And he did that with a scramble to his right, found G. Scott at the sticks. G. Scott fought forward to get that first down and got to extend that and then go score. What else do we have here? All right, that was about where we were in the first half. Defense. Denzel Burke has done it, folks. The drought is over. And not only is it just for cornerbacks and part of BIA, it's the first interception by a cornerback in the Jim Knowles era. So game balls all around for that. What I loved about that sequence is Denzel Burke came up again to support against the run. He made a hard, aggressive play. The helmet flies off. The skull cap comes off. It was a big hit. He didn't want to leave the field either. Didn't know that he had to. But there were times last year, and I've had these conversations with him and others, like he was hurt, and it seemed like there were occasional business decisions being made in terms of the toughness and the tackling. Did not make any of those today. So he goes up, makes a really hard hit, playing against the run, has to come out for a play, goes right back out there and makes a fantastic play. The coverage could not have been any better. Is going down the right sideline, right over here to my left. And for everyone who has wondered over the last several years, well, why don't cornerbacks turn and play the ball? Denzel Burke was in phase. He was in position. He was able to turn his head. It was as if he was the intended receiver, and he got to make a play on the ball by looking at it, and he got the interception. That, you cannot play it any better, and he did that. A big deal. Ohio State did give up the early touchdown. It's the only one. They've only given up one touchdown in 2 games. They're still going to win a lot of games that way. Mentioned Trey. The one thing I wrote before we left upstairs was Kyle McCord said, a healthy Travion Henderson is scary. He's electric. I'm not sure how anyone could really disagree with that. Also had 2 touches as a receiver. They had the screen dialed up. We hadn't seen some of that in a while. End arounds and pop passes going on. Tommy Eichenberg statistically will lead that defense as I jump around the stat sheet before we wrap up here in the horseshoe. 6 tackles and a sack. I'm not sure that Tommy Eichenberg needs to lead Ohio State in sacks or tackles for loss, but if we're going to talk about something that Ohio State will look at from the first 2 weeks, yes, Indiana ran a ton of triple option. There weren't going to be a lot of opportunities, and we could kind of wave our hands and dismiss. Why was there not a lot of pass rush? There weren't a lot of opportunities, and you had to be cognizant of the threat of the run on the ground there and a lot of different responsibilities. Today, Youngstown State was running a lot more of a traditional offense, and there still was not great consistent pressure from the front 4. I don't know why that is. We spent all of August talking about JT Tuimoloau being a game wrecker, and some of that could be because he was going against Ohio State's offensive line. I don't think that he suddenly lost the ability to be a great athlete, and we've seen him do that against Big Ten opponents at the most important times of those games. It's not really clicking for him so far. Jack Sawyer's not been able to really get after it in a way that I think a lot of us expected him to. You still have a lot of substitutions going on the inside at defensive tackle. Doesn't mean any of those guys are playing poorly by any stretch of the imagination. And I know that sacks are not the only way to measure the effectiveness of that group. So I'm sure they're going to watch the film, and if they feel strongly about it that it's a problem, maybe they'll let us know. If they think that this is an overreaction on my part, which very well could be, I'm reacting to it live on Saturday afternoon. We'll find out. But you look at the stat sheet and you certainly expect a little bit more from Ohio State in that regard. Although, again, the end result you can't complain about. You give up 1 touchdown and they've given up 5 points a game through 2 weeks. They're probably going to win a lot of games that way. The counter argument is Western Kentucky, much more different offensively than what these first 2 opponents threw at Ohio State. So the challenge will go up from here. Everybody is looking towards Notre Dame in 2 weeks and making sure that they're ready for that. It's a process. Ryan Day stopped short of saying Rome wasn't built in a day, but he did say, you don't rebuild overnight. You don't do it in 1 week, and they're trying to win a national championship, not necessarily stressing about a huge margin of victory against Youngstown State. And I think Berm and I will probably talk a little bit about that on Snappy Jays, that there is a sense that like Ohio State is not in a hurry to rush through the learning curve and blow people out or prove a point to anybody but themselves. And if that's the case, fine. But we'll also talk about what happens along the way. That's what we're here to do. But Ohio State is 2-0. They won 35-7 against Youngstown State in here, the home opener in the Horseshoe. They gave us plenty to talk about in the notebook. Only thing, I didn't have a beer to drink this week, but I've had all the ones that they have in the concourse here, so it's not really a taste test, and I don't think I want a Topo Chico seltzer, which is all I can see over here, or Corona. But, if you want to live Mas Fina, go ahead and do so. Hope you enjoyed a Saturday and all the coverage that we have for you on the podcast. Still way more coming as we break down week 2, win number 2 for Ohio State. But until then, that is going to be a wrap on the notebook. I appreciate you joining us. I'll talk to you later.